Victoria's Health Department has this morning confirmed it did not notify a plane load of passengers that someone on their flight had breached quarantine during the state's deadly second wave.
The revelations have come to light after a German woman and her son were mistakenly allowed onto a flight from Sydney to Melbourne last weekend. Steph Ferrier joins us now from Melbourne. Good morning, Steph. What are the details of these other revelations?
Good morning, Lisa. Yes, the Department of Health and Human Services says that this man arrived from San Francisco into Sydney in July, but he bypassed hotel quarantine and instead caught a flight to Melbourne. Airport workers alerted authorities to this breach, and so he was immediately placed into hotel quarantine. Luckily, he tested negative to coronavirus on both days 3 and 11 of his enforced stay. The Health Department has confirmed that it didn't alert the rest of the passengers on board that domestic flight to this breach because it wasn't policy at the time. And it should be noted that on July the 14th, Victoria was in the grips of that rapidly escalating second wave. We'd just recorded 218 cases on that day, and we've already heard evidence from Professor Brett Sutton, the state's Chief Health Officer, that the contact tracing system really buckled once it reached 200 cases a day. So authorities here really did already have their hands full. But however, what we have heard is since that time, we do now test and trace all of those secondary contacts as well. That started in October, and the Health Department says that it is obviously something that they're now continuing to do. We saw this in action just recently with the 53-year-old woman and her 15-year-old son. That was as a result of this pair from Germany coming in and then being allowed onto a domestic flight on Saturday afternoon in a bit of a bungle there that the New South Wales Police Department has owned up to, and they then forced the rest of the plane, some 180 passengers, into isolation. Luckily, the health authorities were able to release them here after they returned two negative tests. That pair is now still obviously in mandatory quarantine at the moment. But what we do know is that this is now the second breach, obviously, that's come to light. And we have heard from the state opposition, and they have said that this shows a lack of transparency within the Health Department. We have asked the Health Department whether or not there have been any other breaches in the past, and they're still to get back to us on that. The state government says that they're calling for all other states to do what we do, which is to make sure that they process all of these new international arrivals within airport secure zones and then bus them directly from the airport tarmac to the hotels to stop any of these breaches happening again. We heard just a short time ago from the New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian, and she says that these breaches happen very infrequently. She can't promise that it's not going to happen again, though.
We have to accept that human error and mistakes are going to happen. I can't promise they won't happen again. But what we need to do is make sure that as soon as we know they happen, that everybody who is at risk or who may have been a close contact of that person is immediately contacted and taken the steps they need to take. And that's what's really important. When you are managing that many thousands of people every week, you're not going to have perfection as much as we'd all like it.
And she did add that obviously because Victoria had until recently not had their own hotel quarantine scheme back in action, it meant that Sydney was bearing quite a load with some 3,000 passengers a week. She says they've already brought in some 100,000 passengers, and it should be noted as well, she says that some 45% of them aren't actually residents of New South Wales, so that Sydney is bearing quite a load.